Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into a very timely piece from AP News. The title is Israel and Iran, Shadow War and Nuclear Stakes. And our goal here isn't just, skimming the surface. We want to properly understand what this article is telling us, really dig into the details that matter for you to grasp this, this very high-stakes situation. Okay, let's get started.
Indeed. Yeah, that title alone tells you a lot, doesn't it? Huge complexity. And the article itself, it gives a really interesting view into this subtle, but let's be clear, dangerous relationship between them. It definitely helps frame those critical global dynamics.
Okay, so the AP piece jumps right in with this term, shadow war. Now, that's not your typical, tanks and troops kind of war. Based on the article, what does that actually look like between Israel and Iran? What are the main features it points out?
Well, what's really striking is how the article describes it as this ongoing sort of lower intensity fight. It's fought mainly using indirect methods. So it highlights things like cyber operations targeting important infrastructure. It might mention past incidents, maybe attacks on shipping or industrial systems where it's hard to say exactly who did it.
Right, difficult to attribute.
Exactly. And then there's the strategic use of proxies. That's huge. Both sides backing different groups across the Middle East. Think Hezbollah in Lebanon, various militias in Syria, Iraq. It lets them project power, exert influence without engaging in direct declared hostilities. It's all about that calculated deniability.
So a picture of covert conflict, often deliberately murky. But then right alongside that, the article brings in nuclear stakes and immediately ups the ante.
Yeah.
How does the AP report detail this nuclear dimension? What specific worries does it bring up about, say, proliferation or just stability in the region? This is where it gets really serious.
Yeah. This is absolutely where the article emphasizes the sheer gravity of the situation. It points squarely at Iran's advancing nuclear program, especially the uranium enrichment. It notes how much their capabilities have grown.
Okay.
The piece likely mentions specific figures, maybe enrichment up to 60% purity, and explains how that drastically cuts down the so-called breakout time.
The time needed to potentially get enough material for a weapon.
Precisely, that theoretical window.
Yeah.
And it also highlights Israel's perspective, their stated red lines, their absolute security concerns about Iran getting too close to nuclear weapons capability. And the article suggests that if Iran crosses those lines, it could provoke a much more open, much more destructive conflict. Basically, the nuclear issue casts this incredibly long, dangerous shadow over every single move in the shadow war.
Wow, okay, so the article really connects those dots, how the shadow war actions and the nuclear stakes are deeply intertwined, how any move in the shadows could potentially, maybe accidentally, spark something much bigger related to the nuclear issue. So, thinking about our listener,
Yeah.
what's the key takeaway for you watching this unfold?
Well, I think for you, this deep dive really shows how an article like this one from AP, it does more than just state a title. It breaks down these huge pressures and dangers into specific, concrete examples. It helps you understand why these seemingly isolated incidents, a cyber attack here, a proxy clash there, are often part of a much bigger, very deliberate, and frankly dangerous strategy. You really get a clearer sense of the underlying motives and, the potential consequences driving all this.
Right. So this exploration, really digging into the details provided by the AP News report, it serves as a good reminder. It shows how important it is to look closely at the actual information, the details, when we're trying to understand these complex global situations.
Absolutely. And for you, maybe it prompts a question, how do these specifics, the tactics of the shadow war, the reality of the nuclear stakes as laid out in the report, how do they actually change your view of global security challenges? And perhaps what other layers, what other complexities might you find if you start looking past the main headlines and other global hotspots too?
Definitely something to think about. We'll leave it there for this deep dive.